Merci. Hi, hello everyone. First, I must give my thanks. I can't imagine that it is an easy task for any member of the jury to do this. I've been on book juries myself. It's an impossible task to hold a number of amazing, worthy, and completely different works up against one another and pick one, even though in the end, that is what you have to do. So thank you to Vera Michalski-Hoffman, to Jonathan Coe, Kapka Kasabova, Andrea Marcolongo, Valerie Marijen, Gonçalo Tavares, and Sion, for your time and your consideration. And please forgive my English version of your voice or your names. I'd like to recognize my fellow finalists as well, Mathieu Bellesi and Irene Sola, who deserve the accolades today as much as I do, and whose company I am privileged to be a part of. The work is exemplary, both regionally with a distinct voice that speaks far beyond geographical boundaries and place and time, and I can certainly feel a kinship with that. And thank you so much as well to our musicians today who have situated us here so beautifully, and I am privileged to be a visitor here in Switzerland. I wanted to say more than thank you as well. I would like to talk a bit about what I hope this prize means to work like mine. I grew up in the same village that I live in today. It's very small, very rural, on an island on the far eastern shore of Canada. There is no choice to go in any direction that you please, for to the east, north, and west, there is only the wide open ocean. This is how Cape Breton Island juts out into the Atlantic almost entirely. You can leave the island by one bridge to the south, onto the peninsula of mainland Nova Scotia, but it is a long time even then before you hit what may be considered the solid mass of the North American continent. It is not a rich place. Rather, what comes to mind when people think of Cape Breton is beautiful landscape coupled with economic hardship. And I say all of this to convey a sense of obscurity to you that is very familiar to me. No matter where I go in life, this will always be the view that shaped my understanding of my place in the world. Quaint, poor, and far away, that was us. So it is with both gratitude and great surprise that I accept the Jan Michalski Award, the Prize for Literature. I read those words, an outstanding work of world literature, with astonishment when I received the news. And what's more, Ducks, the book that we are here for, is about the loneliest and most isolated time in my life. If I were to tell the younger, vulnerable, remote version of myself who lived in the work camps of a mine in northern Alberta that an account of her time in the oil sands would be worth notice in global literature, she would not know how to parse that information. So far removed from her daily reality as to not make sense of it at all. I put it this way because I think it matters, not just that I was surprised, but why. When you are working class, when you are a nobody in an enormous industry, when you are quaint, poor, and far away, you never expect your story to matter to anyone. I'm so glad that this book resonated with a larger audience. I see common ground that we cover across great distances when we talk about class and labor and industry. Because we all live in a society that exploits workers and ruins the environment. The power mechanisms and systematic social order that affect even the most obscure remote worker have analogs worldwide. One story is never alone. I've heard from people of all kinds of backgrounds that Ducks reminds them of their own experience. People with experience in industrial work, experience with extreme gender disparity, remote or socially isolated work, migrant work. We have these everywhere. And if there's one thing that I want to see, it is that the attention to my singular story only unearths more and more stories like it. But Ducks is not only my story. I tried very hard to include many different experiences that I witnessed in the oil sands as I could. In many ways, I tried for my character to be the guide for the reader through multiple stories and viewpoints. I wanted to tell a story much bigger than myself, This book is about many things, but above all, I would say it's about capitalism. We are all used to the way things are. For most of us, here and back home, capitalism is just the way the world works, a social ladder that we are supposed to be able to climb. If things are comfortable and routine enough, if life is predictable and money is okay, then we probably don't think that much about it. But what do you do if you are from a place that is not comfortable, not predictable, and most of all, not wealthy? Opportunity was never equal. Modernization does not benefit everyone. For many, there simply is no ladder. And I'm from one of those places. My home is like many others across the world. Once, people lived on subsistence farming and fishing, but that has been unviable since a long time with nothing to replace it. The jobs nearby were industrial ones that boomed generations ago, but the industries were eventually euthanized because they were more profitably performed elsewhere, or because the industry devoured so much resource that it was extinguished, or that the industry just collapsed. What remains in their place is the disheartening milieu that follows the regular places, the paces that we know as deindustrialization. This pattern happens everywhere. Decline, job losses, outmigration, a decreased tax base that must enforce cuts to local public service, shuttering of nonprofits, degradation of local landscape and buildings, diminished healthcare, and diminished health. With all these come an increase in substance abuse, depression, gendered violence, and crime. To be on the losing end of a capitalist society is to have your hope, your sense of worth, your community integrity made less, even though you never had the power to stop it. And you feel that you are nothing. Sorry. What will happen to you? When the coffin closes on a regional industry, there are always people left inside. Dux is often exploring that losing end. It is, as I said, about many things at once. It is a commentary on gender, corporate and government power, labor, money, how we treat each other in isolation, mental health, drug abuse, sexual violence, indigenous rights, environmental concerns, and class. And all of this is just out of my own memories of what happened. In the oil sands, I worked with a lot of people from my island who used to work in the coal mines, the steel plant, the pulp mill. I worked with a lot of people from the province of Newfoundland, where 10 years earlier, the largest layoff in Canadian history happened when 40,000 people lost their jobs overnight. And I worked with a lot of people like myself who had no money, no options at home, and felt like this was their only future. The companies we worked for reformed our daily lives at work and off to maximize profits. A study by the University of Alberta showed that camp workers in oil sands face worse general mental health, more work-related stress, and higher incidences of diagnosed long-term mental health conditions, health conditions and use of mental health services than found in the general population, or an increase in mental health issues with no help at all. More women reported being harassed and discriminated against at work. More men reported thoughts and instances of self-harm. Watching and experiencing these struggles up close is how Dux came to be. It never left my mind, nor did witnessing up close the environmental destruction wrought by extraction industries. You may hail a taxi ride in a city and not think about the oil and gas as you travel through the day-to-day of modern life, but it is harder to deny the hard truth when the shovels are tearing up the boreal forest just outside your window, and the indigenous communities nearby are being poisoned by the toxic runoff in the water. When I left the oil sands, I realized that most people had no idea what human life was like in one of the largest industries in our country. Who were the people in the gears of the economic engine, the prosperity that everyone thrived on during the oil boom? Alberta is the only Canadian province without provincial sales tax, largely because of the wealth of the oil sands. In 2006, in the middle of the time of Dux, the Alberta government sent out a prosperity bonus to every resident in the province, totaling $1.4 billion of money for nothing. The oil industry creates jobs nationwide. Some people might have a bumper sticker or T-shirts and hats in Canada that say, "I love Alberta oil," or "I love Canadian oil and gas." But what, aside from money, are they really talking about? Other people might despise and protest the oil sands for the massive machinery of pollution that it undoubtedly is, but all the same, whose working lives were they protesting along with that industry? What did anyone know about them? Those stories were invisible, replaced by a stereotype image of a one-dimensional, hard-hatted, blue-collar worker who lacks any complexity or interiority, or an image with no humans at all, just large dump trucks driving around at the behest of Shell Oil and other powerful corporations. Dux is merely an eyewitness account. I have no answer to the problems of capitalism, but I did not want the people I knew to be invisible. By and large, that is what people like me were and still are. I think Dux captured people's attention because there are so few working class narratives like it to be found. After all, working class people are far less likely than wealthier people to wield their own image for the general public to assess. Class is a neglected aspect of diversity in literature, often entwined with different intersecting identities. When working class characters appear in books and TV, they are often presented via the withering gaze of the middle class. They are written by people who have never lived that life, but who have been afforded the opportunity to become writers and artists in greater numbers than poor people ever could. The arts largely belong to the affluent. These are the people who produce the media that we consume, the stories that we look at, read, and listen to, the bulk of what we absorb and accept as our own culture over the years, the dominant narrative. That is my account of industrial labor after coming out of an impoverished area. My account after coming out of an impoverished area has received the honor of this prize is both humbling and validating for me. I feel solidarity with anyone who sees themselves in my book. We all wish to be seen. I feel proud when people find themselves enlightened about a world that they never knew through my book. But I do not want my book to be an outlier. We need greater representation from the invisible workers. We need an appetite for their stories and their perspective. The well-being of humans, human communities, and the natural environment we share all deserve protection. Too often they don't have it. Capitalism is one of the ultimate models of the phrase, the ends justify the means. How can we make meaningful change without including the voices of the people most affected by this? I hope my book will soon be just one among many instead of a curious exception. I'm so glad for the recognition I am receiving today from the Jan Michalski Foundation. I feel as though it awards not just myself, but the young woman I was who worked in a mine and lived in a man camp far away from where anyone was looking. I bring her with me through the years and over many miles to accept this, to be seen, and to say thank you. Offhand, and je regrette que mon français, ce n'est pas très bien. I'll be speaking in English just a little bit extra because I've been thinking about this. And it is not lost on me that I get to be here to participate in this celebration of books at this wonderful event that honors world literature, while libraries, museums, archives, universities, places like this are being destroyed in Gaza. And I mourn the loss of so many Palestinian writers, professors, librarians, and archivists. And I mourn the future of the Palestinian voice that would have been in the deaths of so many children. When you have your own voice through literature, you are able to own and to brandish your humanity. That's the power of literature collectively. When you are denied that voice, your humanity can be lost to others. And so, if world literature is what we truly celebrate and what we're here for today, then I would like to acknowledge the voice of Palestinians, like the poet Heba Abu Nada, who once wrote, "O little light in me, don't die, even if all the galaxies of the world close in." She, like many others, was killed in her home in an airstrike last year. And so her light that she speaks of, I think, is with us all now. May we use whatever we have to safeguard it well. May we honor her words with action and prove what power they truly carried. Thank you.